Welcome to my third interview of Mom Stories. It's a series of interviews where I speak to moms about their experience of motherhood so that we can learn from their hard earned experience and wisdom. And today I'm interviewing Mayor Nancy Peckford. She's not only the of North Grenville, but she is also the mother of three. And so welcome. Thank you for making time for us today, Nancy.
Of course. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year as well. So I've known you for about 12 years, and you have always been involved in politics. You were super busy even back then. And so what inspired you? What vision did you have when you decided to become mayor?
Well, I had been working in Ottawa for many, many years, almost 20 years actually, in and around politics. So never elected, but supporting women and youth who are interested in becoming more engaged in politics. So I was exposed to a lot of different political leaders, men and women with diverse backgrounds, passions, experiences. And when I contemplated our own municipal election in 2018, quite frankly, I didn't necessarily see that the perspectives and views of a lot of young families, seniors, and even children were being well represented in terms of our community and its priorities. And as you know, we're a high growth community, lots of very dynamic, lots of growth, but it felt at the time that if nothing else, it would be beneficial to have more people in the race, quite frankly. So when I contemplated running, it wasn't so much about winning per se. It was about offering and reflecting some of the concerns and anxieties and priorities for many of us who lived here.
Mm-hmm. And I remember when the results were in, they were coming in. And my husband and I were just super excited, like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. This is happening. And it just represented a shift, like a shift for people in this community. Like things were going to change somehow in a positive way. And we were just so thrilled. But what stuck with me was your son. He was just so ecstatic when the results were in. And I wondered, what did it mean to your children when you were elected mayor?
Well, I think they were learning alongside me. I remember the night of the victory in terms of the results coming in. And I think, for my son, he was really absorbing, he was 6 at the time, and he was really absorbing the energy, right? And the electricity of the evening. And I think the kids had seen me go from mom to candidate for mayor. And in a number of cases, my oldest had actually joined me for some canvassing. I did a ton of canvassing. I talked to them about my platform because, many things address some of their concerns and the concerns of kids in the community around road safety and recreation and making sure that they were able to do as much as possible here in North Grenville. So I think they were riding the wave of excitement and energy in the community, and it was wonderful to be able to kind of bring them along and share. I think the victory that I think the community had achieved, or obviously some of the community had achieved with them. And my kids were always fairly visible and present during the campaign.
Yes, they were. I'm thinking about most of us. We have the 9-to-5 jobs. And, we have a routine every day. We get up, make our coffee, have a shower, get breakfast, feed the kids, whatever. And we go to work, we come back, we make some supper. It's pretty predictable. How has your job as mayor changed your family's routine?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was working in Ottawa. I was a commuter for 7 years. I have to tell you, I really resented commuting. It got worse the longer we were here in North Grenville because of the investments in the LRT in Ottawa. They created significant disruption on the major highway that many of us use to get into town. So I was feeling really frustrated. I also had to do a lot of national travel, so I was away from my kids a lot. So when I thought about being mayor, it was actually about spending more time in the community. It was about being more present with my kids, not necessarily in the way that some people prefer, which is that, you're solely, focused on their needs. I knew that wouldn't happen, but quite frankly, I was quite absent in their early years. And I thought, what better way to be a mom than to be serving my community and really helping to improve things in North Grenville through their eyes and the eyes of the kids and the peers and the parents and the grandparents who work so hard to ensure that our kids have a good quality of life. So in the end, it just meant a different kind of, I think, work life, but actually one that I believe is much better for them and for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love it. So you were born and raised in Newfoundland, and I was just wondering, how did your upbringing in that community impact your vision or goals for this community?
You know, what struck me about North Grenville is that people care a great deal. They care a great deal about their family and their friends and their neighbors and their community. And, you know, one of the ways I saw that was through becoming a hockey mom, which is not something I ever thought would happen. I had two very energetic children, my youngest two. They needed something, and we tried about everything. We were driving outside of North Grenville to give them gymnastics and swimming. And in the end, I got really tired, and I was like, what is something that I can do that can keep them occupied and stimulated? As we stumbled into hockey, and it was actually really important experience for us, because I saw the dads and the moms really getting up extremely early on Saturday and Sundays and giving it their best. And it was it was a very familiar experience, because in Newfoundland, I had grown up in towns that were of a similar size, and also had there were kind of regional hubs, which is what North Grenville is becoming. And I saw how hard families fought in Newfoundland to keep their kids stimulated and to achieve a high quality of life, often with very limited resources. And I know that we can do that here. And it's really just a matter of focus and attention and priorities. So, you know, Newfoundland really gave me a good sense of what is possible. And I, you know, take that seriously every day. Okay, I'm just shifting.
No, you do. I see that. Yeah. So another passion of yours is cycling. You are an avid cyclist, and I love that you have worked so hard to make the cyclist paths and the pedestrian spaces more accessible and safe. And I've also seen you promoting the trails, you know, maintaining and promoting the trails, which is wonderful and reflects your love of the outdoors. Can you talk about this love of the outdoors and cycling in particular?
Yeah, well, it became very obvious in North Grenville. You know, we're flanked by two tremendous forests, right? We've got Limerick and we've got Ferguson. How blessed are we, right, as a community to have such incredible access, you know, to these outdoor spaces. And it's funny, I often joke that, you know, you can grab a coffee at Brewed Awakenings or go shopping in Colonnade, right, where you have lots of big box stores and whatever, and literally cross the street and there you are. You are like on the edge of a tremendous forest of over 600 acres. So I think if you're in rural Eastern Ontario, being outdoors and really availing of trails and pathways and you know, whatever it is that works for you is pretty key to your sanity. And we're quite, I think, fortunate to have these amenities literally on our doorstep. So it's something that, you know, as a municipality, as a community, I think we have to continue to improve upon. You know, a lot of the work on terms of trail maintenance has been done by formidable volunteer work. And I think we just have to build on that, especially because if you are a commuter and, you know, obviously the community landscape has changed, you're pretty tired at the end of the week. And being able to get outdoors is just a way to stay sane. And in this time of a pandemic, I think it's become that much more critical. You know, at the same time, we could see, I certainly could see as a parent, that road safety wasn't well established here. We had so much growth, so many changes in traffic patterns. You know, we don't have a lot of sidewalks. So we certainly as a council, we felt it's critically important to make strategic and better investments and more investments in ensuring that people are safe. And we've still got a long way to go, obviously. So we're not there yet. But I think anybody who's anybody who either themselves or who's a parent or a grandparent, following their child or their grandchild, down a busy street, or you witness them crossing, the only safe crossing at County Road 43, your heart is in your throat. Yeah. You want people to be safe. And we've got a long way to go and limited resources to get there. But if people don't feel that they can be safe and enjoy the outdoor amenities that are available to us, we've got a big problem. And, a big part of my passion for running was to make sure that we achieved a higher level of safety, so that all those outdoor things that we celebrate here can be fully embraced. And when it comes to cycling, again, another, I think, I loved cycling always, but I'd never done long distance cycling. And really it was a result of the pandemic, right? Gyms are closed. Some of the ways that we might traditionally get exercise weren't available to us. And I happened to connect with a group of women in the community that were doing long distance cycling. And it was an extraordinary experience. It was really amazing. And it brought me a lot of, I think, sanity to be able to do that. And I got to know North Grenville's rural roads extremely well. I really got a better sense of where some of the frustrations lay and why people really want, improvements desperately and, ASAP. So it worked all around.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that you had that. I know that was a very positive thing for you.
It was, it was really tremendous. And, it was by, it only takes one, right? So it was one woman, Stacey Dickinson, that initiated a sort of group cycling experience. And, here we are, we had all been living in this community. Some of us for a very long time, some not so long, but we had no idea how easily navigable some of North Grenville's rural roads were. So it just goes to show like the power of one simple act led, quite a number of us to begin to embrace something that I don't think we had necessarily anticipated doing with such frequency over the course of the spring and the summer. So it was a real gift. I feel very blessed.
That's awesome. When I met you, it was through a mutual friend, mm-hmm. and it was because I was considering homeschooling as an option for my family. And she said, "You have got to meet Nancy." And she told me all about you. And one of the things that you were doing at the time was taking your kids out of school on Friday just to do quality time, because it was a day you didn't have to go into town. And it didn't even occur to me that was an option. Like I thought, how's she doing that? I don't understand. How can we do that? So I'm just wondering, during the lockdown and online learning, how did that impact your family? The whole having to go online for school.
Yeah, well, the Fridays that the kids and I did, much earlier in their school lives, was really about kind of a reset day. Because again, I was traveling so much, I had a lot of evening work. So often I didn't get to see my kids very much Monday through Thursday. It was very tough. So we kind of used Fridays as a way to kind of decompress. And at the time, it was a viable option academically, because again, they were so young. I felt that the time with me after a week where often I wasn't available that much was far more important than, a fifth day at school. Now, I think the pandemic was tough. One of my kids rejected online learning entirely. She wasn't up for it. It didn't work for her. She found virtual learning extremely frustrating. So we just had to find some workarounds and accept that she wasn't going to be a fully engaged student in that way. And I felt, given the extraordinary times we were in, as long as she was reading and getting outside and connecting with friends online, that I would accept that. And I did accept that. I think as parents, we can't put this immense pressure on ourselves or our children, especially when they're doing things they've never done before. My oldest was a little more equipped to deal with online learning, and she did it to the best of her ability. And my youngest, who was 6, right, going on 7, Oh, 7, going on 8 rather, sorry. It was hit and miss. So I think we did our best, but I think a lot of parents felt the pressure to ensure that their kids were engaged and active online every day. And they were also trying to work from home and keep food on the table, and rural internet was a real challenge. So I saw that time as an opportunity for us to show compassion to one another as a family. And it was very busy for me professionally, and that was totally fine. There's not a day and that I wake up and don't embrace the challenges before me. The pandemic never made me regret my decision. It only strengthened my resolve to serve this community. And I felt it was a privilege to be able to continue to work every day and do my part and work with my council colleagues in the municipality to ensure that our community was safe. But I cut my kids a lot of slack, and I stand by that. And then, you know what? They went back to school in the fall. I was a parent who felt comfortable sending them back to school in the fall, and they had a great fall, right? They had a great experience. So I think it all worked out in the end. It was unpredictable and it was imperfect, but welcome to life, right? Like welcome to life. So, and I think that's the other thing about being a mom and a mayor is, some people have said, "Oh my God, how are you doing it?" And God, it must be so hard. And actually, I think being a mom keeps it very real and it keeps you very honest. And I really appreciate that. And I think you use your time better when you have 3 kids who are depending on you. So I try to be really efficient and focused and concerted about what I'm going to get done in a day. And I had to do that during the pandemic because my kids were home more. Their dad obviously also supported, the effort, but I had to be very, very efficient and focused. And I think that made me a better professional. And I'm grateful for that.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question. So I was going to say, it's a stressful time to be a mom, a parent, and it's a stressful time to be in your position as mayor.
For sure.
You've talked about the importance of like focusing your time and sort of releasing expectations a little bit with your kids. How are you managing your stress and balancing your roles?
Yeah, it's just different. The first, I guess, year and a half of my mandate, I was in the community a lot. I felt it was really important that I be very visible and very engaged. And, a lot of people had voted for me that didn't really know me very well. So I took every opportunity to serve and to show up and to respond to people's concerns. So I was very visible. I was a very externally driven mayor because I could do that. And with the pandemic, everything shut down. So I just had to shift how I served, right? So obviously much more online engagement. Social media has been a really huge part of what I do. And I have to say, I think it's incumbent upon community leaders like us and elected officials to be available and accessible in multiple media. So I get as many, I'd say Facebook message requests as I get, emails, and I'm thrilled, right? Because I think we need, when you reach out to an elected official, sometimes it might feel intimidating, or it might feel like you're not going to get an answer back, or the person won't necessarily have empathy for your circumstances. And I think sometimes social media makes it a little bit easier, takes the temperature down. I try to really feature my life as a mom and as a municipal leader in ways that I think are authentic and allow people to just see me as another human who happens to have a kind of responsibility that's obviously very significant for the community. But so we did, a lot just shifted online, but it didn't get that different. I just couldn't be in physically in person. So the technology, I think, has really enabled certainly myself and council to be equally as available. It's just different. And then, with my kids, I actually had more dinners home with them, right? Sometimes I was on a Zoom call, right? I was multitasking. I often prepped a lot of meals, with my earbuds in, and I would carry my phone in my pocket, but it worked. So, I think in the end, it's been okay. It's not for everyone. I know there are people with a lot of frustrations about working at home. And then there's a lot of people who think, hey, like I can do what I need to do, but also be around and visible and a role model for my kids. And it's been okay. So I think it depends on who you are.
Yeah, for sure. So as a public figure now, right? I see you out, farmers markets and out on the streets and cycling and everything. Do you ever have any downtime where you're just Nancy and you're not the mayor? Can you do that, or is that just?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like I think, when my kids are at hockey practice or when they used to play games, when I'm watching one of my kids hockey game, I'm pretty focused, right, on the game. I read a lot, so when I'm reading, quiet time at night, I tend to get up very early in the morning, so my schedule's kind of shifted. So I'm up much earlier than I used to be. So usually by 5 a.m., I'm tuning in to, various CBC radio programs. And that's a really nice way to start, my day. So I do feel like I get enough time to myself and, just being a parent, right? It's hard to be mayor when you're, in the throes of an argument with your preteen about how much screen time they get. So, can't wear the hat all the time. But that being said, what I think is interesting about being a mom and actively parenting kids while serving this position is that I am accessible in the community. And at no point, when I'm grocery shopping or at the dentist or watching, a kid's hockey practice, at no point don't I welcome someone coming up to me, right, and saying, hey, I really want to mention something to you, or could you give me a little more information? And people have been extremely respectful of my parenting role. But what I said during the campaign is that by virtue of being a parent and a mom and engaged, as a human in this community, it gives me a kind of accessibility and availability that I wanted to offer. And I continue to offer that. So when people mention things to me in the course of me grocery shopping or whatever, I'm thrilled. I'm really grateful because, we're at a time, we're in this sort of political era where sometimes I think people are so cynical and they're so dark in their hopes and aspirations for their community or their province or their country, whatever it is, that if you write off politics, if we're all in trouble, right? Like politics it is what it is, and it's messy and imperfect, and sometimes it's ugly, and it's not to say I haven't experienced some of that ugliness, but I've also experienced a lot of beauty and a lot of connection, and I've seen the collective power of goodwill in our community, and I'll take that every day. And if I can be part of engendering that and cultivating that by being in dialogue with individuals or groups or the community writ large, I think it's very hopeful. And we've got a lot of challenges in the 21st century. I see how pessimistic my kids are actually about the environment, about things that really matter to them. And politics is one of the few arenas where we can work together to try to solve some of these really, really big issues. So I'm a believer. I'm a believer that we can do this together.
You're in the right place at the right time then.
I think so.
So what values do you most want to impart on your children?
I think respectful dialogue. I think caring about something and knowing you can actually make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think being outdoors and being present for one another is pretty key. And I think hard work, right? Like I've always been someone who's valued hard work. I have an orientation towards working pretty hard and getting stuff done.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and maybe this is my Newfoundland upbringing, and my parents and certainly my mother treated everyone with absolute respect, and she never prejudged. She came from a family of 12 sisters and brothers who had very different life journeys, and everyone was treated with respect. And I think, when someone emails or calls or messages or shows up to a meeting as they used to, they don't do that now, and they may be angry or frustrated, as a council and certainly as as chair of council, head of council, I've worked really hard to thank people for coming and to try to create the conditions for respectful dialogue. So if my kids do nothing else but offer compassion and non-judgment, right, in their daily interactions, I think that's key in an increasingly divisive world, right, where there's a lot of black and white, and I mean, there's some incredible conversations happening now, right, in terms of Black Lives Matter, Indigenous Lives Matter, etc. But we're still like those. It's still very early days for those conversations, and you don't want that to break down, right? Civility matters a lot, and just seeing the humanity in other people. We won't get through any of the massive 21st century struggles we have without that.
So what can we do as residents to support your vision for our community?
Well, I think you can be who you are. So much fantastic volunteerism now. I think stepping up, right, in the ways that resonate for you, right? We have so many excellent community associations, right? Not just here in Kemptville, but 3 rural hamlets have very dynamic community associations. And to do your part for the great outdoors, right? Or for the many fundraisers that happen here, like Neon Night, right? And the Terry Fox Run and the North Grenville Community Fund. I mean, on it goes, the Chamber, the Knights, right? There's just the Salvation Army has been an incredible organization to watch because they've grown so significantly in a small number of years, and their supportive families during the pandemic has been unprecedented, right? And they have been such a stabilizer. So I think it's doing what calls you, and it's amazing how just a little bit of action or a little bit of time can go a long way. And I think it's certainly as busy parents or seniors, sometimes you feel like, well, I can't really give enough, and I think whatever you give is enough, right? And as long as you connect in. So I think that's the way to support this council, because our goal was to energize and facilitate the incredible community efforts that were being made, and not be an obstacle to that, but to be a partner in that, to be a partner with our community groups. So whatever turns you on, right? Just get out there and do it. And if you need to hibernate, or parenting is the best you've got, or you're recovering from, you're a retired professional and you got to recover for a couple of years and keep your head low, that's okay too. That's okay too. I have been struck by incredible, I think there is a lot of compassion in the community. I know on social media, sometimes things degenerate and it gets nasty and individualistic, but I've also seen a lot of people rise above that and create really important spaces for people to come together. And we just got to keep doing that day after day, because we're not through this pandemic, as we know. We got a ways to go, and even once we're through it, right, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you're at the head of it all, because it's all good. It's all good. Thank you so much. I know you have so many different meetings lined up, but I appreciate your time and what you're doing in the community. And I appreciate you as a mom as well, Nancy. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you.
So, Anne, if I can say one thing, you are one of those community leaders, and you've probably done more than most to shine the light on the incredible energy and spirit of this place. So I want to say how much we appreciate your efforts. It's been really fantastic to see how you've connected people and really strengthened our community. So thank you for all you're doing. It really means a lot. And you're tremendous at what you do. So keep doing it.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.